Welcome to the Commission press room for this joint press conference by the European Commission Article 50 Chief Negotiator Michel Barnier, the Secretary of State with the Department of Exiting the European Union, David Davis. Without further ado, I give the floor to Michel Barnier.
Thank you, Margaritas, and good afternoon to all of you. Je suis très heureux.
I'm very happy, as I always am, to be back here with you in this room with David Davis after intensive negotiations which have been held here in Brussels over a number of days and indeed a number of nights. I would, as I start this little press event, I would like to thank the members of our two delegations most personally, because they've worked very, very hard, coordinated as they were by Sabine Weyand and Ollie Robbins. I would also personally like to applaud the whole of the United Kingdom negotiating team for their commitment and competence. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've said on a number of occasions, this is an international agreement that we're working on. It is an international agreement between the United Kingdom and the European Union, an international agreement with all the precision, all the rigour and all the legal certainty which pertains to any such international agreement. And what we're presenting to you today here with David is a legal text, a joint legal text, which constitutes, in my mind, a decisive step, because we were able this morning to agree, and after all those days and nights of hard work, on a large part of what will make up an international agreement for the ordered withdrawal of the United Kingdom. Decisive step remains a step. We're not at the end of the road, and there is a lot of work still to be done on important subjects, including Ireland and Northern Ireland. But this decisive step will be presented by me on Friday at the invitation of the President Donald Tusk and alongside President Juncker to the European Council. Before that, tomorrow I shall be meeting ministers from 27 member states, on behalf of whom I negotiate, during the General Affairs Council, and I will also be meeting the Brexit Steering Group of the European Parliament. And on Wednesday, invited by Jean-Claude Juncker, I will take stock of the negotiations before the European Commission. But it is the European Council on Friday which will assess and judge the state of the negotiation. And as far as I'm concerned, I shall continue in the name of the Union to meet you regularly and to report to you on these negotiations in full transparency, because it's with that full transparency that on the 28th of February we published a complete draft withdrawal agreement, which of course we discussed beforehand with the 27 member states and with the European Parliament. And on the 15th of March, that's just 2 weeks later, just a fortnight later, we revised and consolidated that draft agreement, having included comments from member states and from the European Parliament. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's that draft agreement that we've been continuing to work very intensively with my team and with the team from the United Kingdom, and having done that, we've just published a few moments ago, jointly with the United Kingdom, a new version of the draft, which is colour-coded with 3 colours, and symbolically I'd like to show you what we've done. This is the whole thing. I recognise that you might not be able to read it, some of you at the back of the room, but you will be given a text in just a very few short minutes, and you will be able to ponder it and pore over it page by page. But this is a sort of overview of the articles and protocols of the draft international withdrawal agreement. Now, what you see in green there are the things which are now formally agreed between the negotiators. That's what you see in green. What you see in yellow are some of the points where we have a political agreement, but which still have to be clarified over the next few weeks. In white, the text that was proposed by the Union, our text, on which we shall continue with our discussions, either because on those subjects we still have disagreements or divergences, or simply because we just need more time in order to go down to the level of the detail. But you see the text in front of you, symbolically on the wall behind us, and I'd like to make 4 comments. One is that our discussions over the last few days have made it possible to find complete agreement on a legal translation of the points which were agreed in December in the joint report on citizens' rights and on the financial settlement. And that makes it possible today to reassure to the 4.5 million citizens, British and European, who are affected and concerned by Brexit. Those are the people who have been our priority from the day one, the priority of the European Parliament and the priority of the Member States. And it's also possible to reassure all those who run or benefit from projects financed by the European budget during the period 2014 to 2020. For the citizens, in the text that we have today, there's an additional option, which is the possibility to obtain a new residence status in the United Kingdom from the transition period. And this option will make it possible for those citizens who wish immediately to have the kind of legal certainty that they want on their right to reside after the transition period. Second comment on the text. We've reached an agreement on the transition period, on which the European Council in December had given its agreement in principle, of course, after the request made by Theresa May in her Florence speech. The transition will be of limited duration, as was requested by the government of the United Kingdom and by the European Union. During that period, the United Kingdom will no longer participate in the European Union decision-making processes, simply because after the 30th of March 2019 it will no longer be a member state. Nonetheless, it will preserve all the benefits and advantages of the single market, the customs union and European policies, and will therefore be required to respect all the European rules, just like member states do. Now, we've committed to working during that period in good faith and to continue to respect the principle of sincere and loyal cooperation. Finally, we agreed that British citizens and European citizens of the 27 who arrive during the transition period will receive the same rights and guarantees as those who arrived before the day of Brexit. I would like to remind you that the period of transition requested by the United Kingdom will be a time which is useful, very useful, for the United Kingdom administration and businesses in order to prepare themselves for the future. For example, by negotiating during that period agreement with third countries. That period of time will also facilitate our own preparation on the European side. And finally, the period of the transition will be a period during which we will need to finalise our future relationship. And that's a short period of time to do so. So it will be a negotiation which will be intense and demanding on our future partnership. Our intention is to move forward as quickly as possible, to start as soon as I have a mandate to do so, via guidelines from the European Council on all the subjects of the future relation in parallel. And I think it's even possible, I'm speaking personally, that we might be able to agree, in particular during that period, on a future ambitious partnership in a foreign and external security policy. On the other subjects of the separation, I would like to welcome the progress that's been made. over the last few days on certain points, such as, for example, finalising on customs procedures, movement of goods and the monitoring of them, commitments of the United Kingdom in nuclear matters, or protecting European trademarks. On those subjects and on others, my team will be more than happy after this press event if you have specific or more technical questions to ask. On the other hand, other negotiations must continue on other subjects of the separation, non-negligible subjects, such as, for example, geographical indications, data protection, and the automatic recognition of rulings. Fourth thing I wanted to say, we do have to make progress. I did say that we're not at the end of the road. We do have to make progress on a couple of points of divergence which are of primary importance. First of all, the governance of the withdrawal agreement and questions related to Ireland and Northern Ireland. On the governance of the withdrawal agreement, we've confirmed the solution which was agreed in December for matters related to citizens' rights. That is settled, but we still do have to settle the governance on all the other subjects of the withdrawal agreement.
On Ireland, we must have a workable and practical solution to avoid a hard border and protect North-South cooperation. The EU and UK agreed to include in the withdrawal agreement text published today a note on how the Irish issues will be dealt with. We have agreed the following. 1. Both sides remain committed to December's joint report in all its aspects. All. 2. We have agreed that the issues identified in the EU text must be addressed for finding a viable and legally sound solution. 3. In particular, we agreed today that a backstop solution must form part of the legal text of the withdrawal agreement. 4. We have also agreed on some elements of the protocol, notably those related to the common travel area and North-South cooperation. As I said several times, the backstop will apply unless until another solution is found. This is what I also discussed this morning with the Taoiseach Simon Coveney. We are ready to look at all options which allow us to meet our objectives in a constructive way. This is what I have underlined on the same terms in my recent meetings with the leaders of Sinn Féin, the Democratic Unionist Party and the Ulster Unionist Party. Ireland and Northern Ireland form a distinct strand within the framework of the negotiations of the UK's orderly withdrawal from the EU. I repeat, within the framework of the withdrawal. In this context, we have agreed with the UK on a detailed agenda for discussion over the coming weeks. Mesdames et messieurs, pour conclure.
Ladies and gentlemen, just to conclude, I would like to say that I think that over the last few days we've trodden an essential part of the road towards an orderly withdrawal, which I have been working on ever since the first day of this mission. We will continue, and we will continue to bear in mind that all the points that I have just mentioned are part of a same agreement and have to be agreed together. And I would like to add that legal certainty on all these points, including the transition, which is part of this agreement, will come only with ratification on both sides of the withdrawal agreement. Nothing is agreed until everything is agreed.
L'Union revient d'évaluer
It's up to the Member States now to assess this progress in order to adopt guidelines which will enable us to start in parallel to discuss with the United Kingdom on a framework for our future relationship and the future partnership. And of course, in the light of the various different resolutions, the European Parliament will also proceed to